Good afternoon, Mr. Spillars.
Hey.
Nice to talk to you again. You and I first spoke, I think that was Friday or Saturday while you were at the jail by a Zoom call. Is that correct?
Yeah, we sure did.
Other than that conversation, we've never talked before.
No, we had not.
You never reached out to us to try to speak to us in any way about this case.
Actually, I have.
Did you?
Yeah, I've called several times. I've called your office. I've left messages for you
Okay.
over the past few months.
While you were in custody?
Yeah, I was in custody.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Apologize if I didn't get those messages.
Okay. Yeah, I probably called you half a dozen times. I've left messages with your secretary. I was told that you were the person that I needed, the individual that I needed to talk to probably like 4 months ago. I've been locked up since July, and I have called you many times trying to get in touch with you to reach out and just let you know that I'm here to get to speak my perspective.
Okay. But before Saturday, or when we talked by Zoom at the jail, we had never spoken before.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
Okay. We had never talked at one point about what your anticipated testimony was going to be today.
Absolutely not. No, your questions for me on Saturday are mostly in the nature of my relationship with the group. We only talked for 30 minutes.
Right.
I mean, I've been on the stand now for 2.5 hours.
Yes, sir.
You know?
Yes, sir. And I am going to talk a little bit more about your relationship to the group, just to flesh some of that out, okay?
Let's do it.
But I'm going to start with December the 8th. I know,
Okay.
I know that's a tough day for you. I've seen the emotion on your face about what happened that day.
I care deeply about Kawani and that baby, too.
Yeah. I just want to understand a couple of things. When you came into the room at first, Z was already in the room, right?
Yes, he was.
And when you came in, Z was attempting to resuscitate and deal with Hannah, correct?
Yes.
When you first approached Kawani, and I'm going to call her Kawani because that's what you call her. I'm going to try to keep that consistent. When you first approached her, was the knife still in her chest?
No.
Or was she holding that in her hand? Or where was the knife?
It was on the floor.
Okay, so the knife was already on the floor beside her.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything to touch or move that knife when you walked in, when you came into the room?
Nope.
Okay. And you said that she was saying that she wanted to see her baby. She was moving up to see Nimsy, correct?
Yes.
And she said to you, "I'm supposed to die. I'm supposed to die." That's what she was telling you.
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall when she was laying there on the floor, do you recall her reaching out to Nimsy with her right hand?
It's really hard to know. I don't. I remember her like pushing my face away, like she was trying to get me to stop, like she like wanted me to stop trying to like put pressure on the wounds. You know.
Was she also trying to get to the child, did you think?
No, I don't even think she could get up at that point. Like she said very clearly, I can't even see. Like she says, I can barely move, I can't see. I would just want to see her one last time. And I told her she needed to be still because she's bleeding profusely and the EMS people need to get here.
Okay. I'm not going to make you watch the body cam videos from the officers that came into the scene. The jury's already seen those in this case. If I tell you that one of the prior officers in this case testified that Kawani was reaching out and holding Nimsy's hand, do you have any reason to dispute that could have happened that morning?
Well, it couldn't have been that she was touching her because there's too much distance between them.
Okay.
Like there was too much distance there.
Okay.
Like the baby was on the bed and Z was trying to like breathe into her because she was gurgling blood and there was blood everywhere. But
if an officer says that he saw that, you don't have any reason to dispute what that officer would have said?
I will dispute that.
Okay.
I'll 100% dispute that.
Okay. Have you ever seen the body cam video in this case?
No, I haven't.
Okay. All right. Let me get you back to...
So you're saying, let's be clear one more time. You're saying that Kawani's body was touching Nimsy's body, and that you're saying that if an officer said that, would I dispute it?
I'm not asking you if their bodies were touching each other. I'm asking you if you recall her reaching out and touching her with her arm, with her right hand.
Yes, that's what you're saying.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying, touching the baby with her hand.
Yeah.
No, that's impossible. There's too much distance between them.
Okay. All right.
There's no way that she could have been touching the baby.
Okay. Now, you did say in response to some questions there by Ms. Gropper that she was asking you about what you thought should happen to Kwani from this case.
Sure.
You understand that what your belief is about that doesn't truly mean a lot. The jury gets to decide that, correct?
Sure, but I mean, I feel like it's a fair question.
Sure, because you
Yeah.
saw her consistently for about 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
And you have testified to us pretty extensively about a significant change in her mental state from when you first met her in April or May of 2020 until December of 2020, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Your testimony is, and I think I wrote this down right, you know that wasn't her that did that.
Yeah.
You know that wasn't Chloe Driver that did this, right?
Yes.
You know that because everything that you ever saw her do with that child was what you would expect for a loving mother, right? You know that because of what you saw in that child's eyes and face when that child saw her mother, right?
Yes.
You described her earlier in your testimony that the child was bright and full of life, right?
Yes.
And she got that personality, she got that as a reflection from the treatment she got from her mother.
From the love of her parents.
Yeah, Z too, right?
See too.
But from her mother.
Yeah.
You said that her mother was particularly the one responsible for most of the day-to-day motherly things with the child, changing the diapers, right?
Yeah, I mean, Z changed some diapers too, obviously, but yeah, she was.
But she breastfed this child
Yes,
every
she
time,
did.
right? They did not believe in bottle feeding or
No,
formula.
she breastfed her child.
Right.
Yes, she did.
So she was up all night feeding the child when the child needed to be fed,
She was
right?
an excellent mother. I've already said that.
Yeah. So you know,
She loved her baby.
you know from being with her that, as you just said, there's no good reason why a mother would ever kill her child. You know in this case that there was no good reason why she would ever kill her child, right?
No.
Okay. So just taking you back to May when you first met her,
Yeah.
the first time that you saw and understood the dynamic of this group relationship that Z was in.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you had met him previously in Asheville, and you talked about the trust and that, you didn't really understand the group dynamic at that point in time.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. It was, that's kind of hard to, that's why I was so interested in their group and in their family. And so was Jennifer, this girl I was with at the time. And, it's, you can talk to someone, but you need to see that type of social interaction in person to gain it.
You'd never had an experience relationship-wise like that, right? You never had a polygamous plurality relationship.
I've had multiple women that I've balanced. I've done that my whole life, really. Had multiple girlfriends, if you will. But no, I had never taken the time to introduce them to each other and be like, hey, we're a family now. I'm going to actually be devoted to you as a husband and show you that level of commitment and care and love and appreciation and all these things. Even though I was never really I always showed those things to the women in my life, but never to the level of calling them my wife.
Right.
So like I say, when I heard that, I thought it was very interesting because it was kind of what I had always done anyway with plurality in women, but actually having the intimacy and the fulfillment of having a wife, which I had always had missing from my life and I really wanted. But I never wanted to just settle for one woman, and Z kind of seemed, it was just like, oh, it just like a light clicked on in my head. I was like, oh, so you have multiple wives. That's how you do that. Okay.
And like I said, you never had that relationship with multiple women in a wife type setting.
No,
right?
sir.
Right.
I have not.
So you were curious as to how that existed.
Yes, sir.
And whether or not these people all got along with each other.
Right.
Was the relationship built towards each other, were there infighting amongst some of them, right?
Yeah.
And when you first met them in May, you found that everything was, they all agreed. They got together. They got along.
They really
worked
did.
together, right?
Yeah, it was beautiful. I was inspired by it. And even when we left, I told Jennifer, I was like, I'm about to change my perspective on,
Let me show you. We're going to mark this as Defendant's Exhibit 1, Judge. This is a photograph, I believe, that was taken off of Kuani's phone by law enforcement. You see that photograph on your screen there, sir?
Yeah.
Do you recall an instance like that in May, June at the beach?
I mean, that was pretty much like their life. Look at how happy Kuani, you know, like look at her face. Look at the baby, you know, like these were just like, it was just like happy people, like just living their lives.
Does that seem to be a fair and accurate reflection of things that you exhibited with them at that time in May?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And again, Judge, let me show you, we'll call this one Defendant's Exhibit 2, and I'm going to see if I can...
There's Kuani holding and feeding her baby on the beach, you know, like,
zoom
look at
in
her
on that
face.
to make
like,
it a little bigger. Appears in that photograph, she's actually breastfeeding the child. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Same photograph, time frame, they're on the beach, obviously. Does that appear to be a representation of what they would have been like in May or June of that year?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, when I left, I told Jen, I'm like, I'm doing this now. I'm going to have multiple wives one day. And she was like, I was like, so what do you think about that? She's like, actually, she was like, okay. She was like, so I told her, I'm like, I'm gonna bring some other women into like this relationship, because she was living with me at the time. Even though I told her, you know, and I was very clear about, you know, that it was more of like an open type relationship, you know, that I was not like fully committed to her, that I wouldn't see other women, but she wasn't like fully committed to me either. It was more like an open relationship, kind of that we were both okay with that circumstance.
Yeah.
We did, even though we did live together.
Okay.
And I told her, I was like, man, we should move another girl in. And she was like, if it could work like that, then okay, you know. Like, this is a woman who 24 hours before, she's like, I don't know about this. We have to go like see these people and see how this works. To, you know, we get down there and we see. She's like, okay.
That
She's
ultimately did not work out though with you and Jen.
No, it did.
Right.
You know, that's a whole different story.
Okay.
So,
Judge, I will move to tender Defendant's Exhibits 1 and 2 at this time.
Any objection?
No objection.
but yeah, Jen said, you know, if it could be like that, if it could be the way that they are with each other, and they're not like jealous, fighting, bickering little women, you know, who have these, you know, like all of this stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like the things that you would expect, like the jealousy and fighting and bickering between women. It was not there.
Okay.
And we stayed for a week and we saw them in and out, and you know, like when you're around somebody for a week straight, like we were really observant of them. So yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about how their family was just working in this beautiful kind of way.
All right. And then your next interaction with them together was roughly in September when you went to Connecticut.
Well, I saw them a couple times. Like I say, I remember seeing them. Saw Z in Asheville. I met him for lunch at the 12 Tribes one time over the summer. I met Kawani and her parents at the river one day in June. Yeah.
But the next extended time that you spent with them was September up at Z's parents' house.
Yeah, I need to use this real quick. My nose is yes, the next time I was with them extensively was in September at Z's parents' house, and Mike and Michelle Joyce's house in Bristol, Connecticut.
I'm showing you now.
I'm sorry. I'm going to object to publishing all the exhibits before they've been admitted. I don't know what else he intends to get into. The state's previously provided an exhaustive list of all of our exhibits, but I have no idea what he has on there. That
It's just photographs of her and the child during the time frame that we're talking
we just
about.
review whatever he's seeking to admit before we publish it to the jury.
I just don't have them printed out. They're just
It's the same ones that were used during opening.
Oh, okay. No objection to those.
All right. You withdrew your objection?
I withdraw my objection if
All
they're
right.
the same ones during opening.
All right.
this photograph, Mr. Spillars, I believe, was taken in August, so maybe slightly before your visit with them in September. But does that seem to accurately reflect how you would have seen Kawani and Nimsy at that period of time?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, I'll mark that as this Defendant's Exhibit 3, and we'll move to tender that, I guess, as well.
No objection.
It's admitted.
And then in September, when you were in Connecticut, you were there for about 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And I think you said that you stayed in your van for the most part. You slept in your van while you were there.
Yeah.
Kwani, Z, Nimsy were in his parents' home.
Yeah.
Right. And at that point in time, his parents knew her, knew the other women that were involved, right? They were well aware of the relationships that he had.
Yes, they were.
Okay. Did he ever talk to you about a time in which he took Kwani back to his house in Connecticut before the child was born, when they first met, and he had her living in his parents' basement?
Yeah, I do remember him talking about that, like briefly, like that's how they met or something like that. That's when they first met.
You recall him telling you that he kept her in the basement because he didn't want his parents to know about her at that time, and he
No.
took food down there to her?
Definitely not. And they definitely knew that she was there. That's ridiculous.
Okay, this would have been not September of 2020. I'm talking about before that.
Oh
when
yeah,
they
but I
first
mean,
met.
dude, Michelle Joyce is not the kind of lady who has somebody in her house and doesn't know about it. That's impossible.
Okay.
So, like, that's just not our thing.
Okay.
Like the idea that, that they didn't know that he was keeping someone in her house, like, yeah, right. Have you met her?
I have not.
Okay, well then you would know. Like, there's no way that's like,
Okay.
yeah. But no, I never heard him talk about that. But that just strikes me as like, if you knew the Joyce family, like,
You don't think that would have happened?
I don't think that's possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in September,
Just-
though, in Connecticut, your testimony is that you begin to see her, a change in her personality, a change in her.
Yeah, a radical
self.
change.
Yeah.
She struck Z when I was there. And that was just like so, like, just out of character. Like,
This is when these episodes were starting in which she would basically zone out or be in a catatonic type state.
definitely.
Is that right?
Yes.
When she was in these states, she would come out of them and not have any recollection of what just happened. Is that right?
Yes, sir. And I witnessed this many times.
Yes.
Especially because it developed even more when I, into October and through November, it was severe. I've never seen anything like it.
Was she telling you the type of things that she was hearing or seeing during these delusional spells? Would she tell you that she was hearing voices?
Well, not really like that. No, she was more expressing it as just like this, like aggressive, manic, like thing. She would talk about all kinds of stuff, but it was like really hard to and I was listening attentively and with care and respect for Kwani when she was expressing these things. And it's like certain things that she would say kind of made sense sometimes. Like she would talk about like gosh, I can't even remember these things specifically. Like she would talk about like evil in the world and like which there is a lot of evil in the world.
Sure.
So it's not like everything that she said, but some of the things that she was saying were completely like.
But she was expressing to you that this was evil that she felt like was directed at her, right?
Definitely.
Not something that she was just talking about.
But just like an ambivalent force in the room as well, too.
Yeah.
Like not just like an indirect, like just the presence of evil.
Yeah, she sensed this.
Yes.
It's not like she was mad at the war in Israel or something. She was feeling a presence of a body or a presence of an entity that was coming towards her or directed towards her, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, she was.
This was so profound to you when you saw her in September and such a difference in how she was in May. You recall talking to Z about this and telling him that she needed to get some help?
Yeah, I did actually. I was like, dude, I don't know, but I mean, I was trying to say like maybe she should go to an institution or something like that. But at the same time, I've never been to one of these institutions.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, and Z has a lot of familiarity with these things.
You said you told us in your conversation we had with you Saturday that your sister has some relation to social work, right?
My sister has her master's degree in social work and behavioral sciences, and she works as a counselor And, I have a very close relationship with my sister. So we talk about these things. And I pride myself in being an intellectual and having the ability for divergent thinking and to, gain objective understanding for concepts rather quickly, So I've always excelled and been in the top of my class kind of guy. So I speak with Chelsea. My sister's name is Chelsea. I speak with Chelsea, and I've spoken with her about these things, and we spoke a lot about Kiwani when this was happening with her.
And I'm not going to hold you to an expert in psychology by any means or psychiatric issues, but you believed, and I think you even told Detective Cruz this in your interview, that you believe that in fact Kiwani was suffering from specific disorders such as bipolar or schizophrenia, that type of thing, right?
Well, yeah, I do think that. I do think that some kind of individual could, but it's like these things came on very suddenly. So it's like I was telling the state earlier in my testimony, and that's why I didn't really push it too far when Z said that he didn't want her to be institutionalized, because this wasn't like how she was all the time. So so perhaps I'm incorrect, because to diagnose somebody with schizophrenia means that they have schizophrenia, not that they have schizophrenic-like episodes. Do you understand the differential here? It's like, that's how I'm viewing it now. And honestly, at that time, I had just witnessed Nimsy breathe her last breaths, and I'm trying to save Kiwani's life. So, it's like I don't even really remember that interview with Tiana Cruz myself. That there was like a lot of trauma.
You were still in shock to some degree about what you just.
I'm still traumatized
right?
by this to this day.
Yeah.
This is like a huge thing for me to deal with.
But Z's response to you reaching out to him about what you were seeing and your concerns, he did not want her treated.
He didn't want her to put her. Well, his expressions were very clear. He didn't want to put her in an institution where she would get less care and less time and consideration than what she was getting from him and from her sisters.
He didn't want pharmaceuticals
and he
for
didn't
her.
want her to become some brain dead pharmaceutical girl,
And he didn't want that for Kiwani, but he also didn't want that for Nimsy, right?
Thank you. Yes, that's where I was going. She's breastfeeding this baby, and he didn't want that, and he didn't want her to be institutionalized because she has this. He was trying to keep their family together, man. And I respected him for that, and I respected him for trying to do it organically and without drugs.
So let's talk a little bit about this CBD here. That was State's Exhibit 87. I think when you testified earlier, I thought you testified that you had bought that from a store, but maybe I misunderstood. You got it from a friend of yours.
I bought it from an individual, a woman who's in her 50s, who works in the CBD industry.
Is her name Kylie Cross?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So this appears like in this jar, it appears to be something that was homemade or manufactured by someone and put in that substance. Is that fair?
I'll tell you what I was told.
Okay.
I was told that was manufactured in a large quantity, and that it was processed in a legal type circumstance, and that it was legal to be sold in stores, but it was excess that she had access to.
Okay. But you don't, that's how you got it, right? In that jar.
That's exactly how I got it.
You were told what it was. You were told it was CBD, but other than that, you have no reason to understand that it's CBD or anything else, correct?
I'm just going by what I was told, yes.
Okay. And you had used some of that yourself.
Yes, sir.
And I think your testimony earlier was you didn't think that it had much of a effect on you.
It really didn't.
Using it for your shoulder, I think.
Yeah, I got a bat. I have a bad neck and a bad rib. I did jiu-jitsu for years and years.
And it didn't really give you any relief.
It did in a way. It did a little bit, but I discontinued my use of CBD.
You didn't have any side effects from it, such as delusions or paranoia or concerns like that, right?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. But you definitely saw what you believe was an increase in paranoia and delusions from Kiwani that occurred at the time she was taking this substance as well,
Yes,
right?
sir, I did.
Did you believe that the CBD or whatever this stuff was causing her symptoms to get worse?
Not at first. When she first started taking it, I gave it to him in September. And then that only progressed until like, that was way later. And she was the one who was saying that. Cause I don't, her delusions, it was like, it's hard for me to differentiate, was this actually, but she was the one who started saying that.
She was telling you that she was having concerns that this substance was causing.
She was telling us, and then Z started to like pull it back and like stop giving it to her.
Okay. Ultimately, and you talked a little bit about this earlier, the nature of this relationship and the control, and I don't mean control in a necessarily in a negative way, but the patriarchal structure of this family, right?
Yes, sir.
Ultimately, Z had the final decision about whatever was happening in this family, right?
I mean, yeah, for the most part, but these women were heard. It's not like these were not oppressed, silenced women, and by no means. In fact, very much the opposite. Like I say, he wakes up every day. It's like we want to talk. He wants them to talk. They were encouraged to speak. They were encouraged to speak their minds. They were encouraged to tell how they were feeling. So he could be a better man.
But if Z felt like the CBD was something he wanted to have her use, he would be the one to say, let's use that.
Well,
right?
He was vehemently opposed to it at first, but she talked him into it.
And he did agree to it.
And he finally agreed to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if he had not agreed to that, she would not have been able to use it.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the nature of a relationship, unless two people are in agreement. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I don't think that he would have, just like he didn't want her to use pharmaceuticals, Like I said, she's breastfeeding a child.
Did you ever tell him that he needed to stop giving her the CBD?
No, I did not.
Never.
No, I didn't.
Okay. Now again, this time frame of September when you're in Connecticut, October when you're in Virginia with them, despite the concerns you're seeing for her declining mental state, her treatment of Hannah was still 100% top-notch motherly treatment.
It really was.
Right?
Like, it really was. Yeah, I mean, there were a couple times where, she was so out of it and having like these like episodes of panic and discomfort and violent aggression, where, I felt like she wasn't her best self as far as like giving Hannah all of the attention that the child needed, but that was uncommon. That was only like a few times because it's like when she's manic and like screaming and pulling her hair out, and it's like there's a baby in the room. Like
when she was in that state, she obviously couldn't be a good mother.
There were a couple times where I had to hold the baby because she was like Z was like, here, hold the baby, like because Kawani's like becoming aggressive and violent and screaming at the top of her lungs in public places, and
But nothing that she ever did during those times, nothing that happened while she was in those delusional states or those paranoia states, nothing she did was ever violent, aggressive, or harmful to Lindsay.
No. Very much the opposite.
Okay.
Still.
All right. Now, when you were in North Carolina, this is, I guess, late October into November, when you got back to North Carolina where you live, right?
Yeah.
Candler. It's like a suburb of Asheville, is that right?
Yes.
Peggy, how far does Peggy live from you?
In Candler?
Yes.
To South Asheville, it's like 20 minutes.
Okay, but your house from Peggy's house is same distance, or?
What do you mean?
Where you live versus where Peggy lives, how far apart do y'all live?
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Peggy lives in South Asheville.
Okay.
Off Overlook Road.
Okay.
I live in Candler. 41 Oakdale was my address.
Okay.
And I would say it'd take 15, 20 minutes to get over to South Asheville.
So when y'all were in North Carolina, was the rest of the group primarily living at Peggy's apartment with her, or were they staying in both places?
Yeah, basically like both places, but I let my house out to them. I let them stay at my place.
Okay.
When we came back from Virginia Beach, they stayed at Peggy's for a little while, and then Z asked me, and we stayed there. And then Gamliana started doing the dark therapy there at my house. So at that point, they were staying at Peggy's, and that's where That's where she was during the events that happened on November 25th.
Yeah.
And that's why she wasn't there, because she was doing a dark therapy, like I say, for her own pursuit of a higher vibrational frequency.
We'll come back to that November 25th incident in just a minute.
Okay.
But at that point in time, they were staying at Peggy's house. Is that
Yes.
fair to say? Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the group dynamic and some of the stuff that were practiced. And you talked on this earlier. This was a patriarchal driven dynamic, right?
Right. Well, Z's like the center. Z's like he's the man of the house, and
He calls himself a prophet, does he not?
a prophet.
Yeah.
I don't know that Z would use that word to describe himself.
You never heard him call himself a prophet?
I've never heard him call himself a prophet.
You never heard him call himself Prophet Elihu?
No.
No? If he told Detective Cruz that when he was giving her his name in an interview, would that surprise you?
Eliyahu.
Yeah.
Eliyahu's his given middle name. That means Elliot. That's a Hebrew name.
Okay. But if he called himself a prophet, that would surprise you.
I mean, that kind of would surprise me that he would use that word.
Do you recall him talking about, at times, Z or any of these women in the group?
Yeah.
Do you recall them talking about the CIA coming after them and out to get them?
Yeah, there was some talk about that.
Okay. Part of the idea of this trust system, as you talked about, was keeping your property away from the government.
Sure.
You have a, let's say, healthy distrust of the government. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
Sure.
You part of the trust idea is that it insulates your property and your income from taxes.
Yes, it does.
Right.
No, that's a fact.
And at the time that you were with this group from May to December, Z didn't have a job, did he?
No.
Nobody else in the family had a job, right? None of the wives had jobs.
No.
Kawani's job was being a mother to this child, right?
That's right.
Do you know what source of income they were living off of?
I know that all of their finances are private through their trust. I mean,
But you don't know how they got them.
I mean that's.
Do you know anything about him submitting loans to the government during COVID with PPP money?
Yeah, I do remember there being some talk about that, but
Setting loans up in the name of a religious organization that they got money from?
okay.
I mean, are you aware of that?
I mean, I remember them doing that, yeah, but I mean, I didn't really know all the details about that, but I do remember that. Yeah, I do remember there being them using the trust.
What about also this belief in this group that there are only 168,000 souls that are alive in the world? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, that's not unique to them.
Is that something that you hold as well?
Is my belief what's on debate here? How does this relate back to? I'm trying to understand
Just trying to understand the nature of this group
Okay, the nature of the group in relation to the death of the child, or
and the relation to what they believed.
okay, what does that have to do with the death of the child?
Mr. Spillars, I get to ask you questions about what I would like to ask you questions about, as long as they're generally relevant.
Okay,
I'm asking you
trying to
questions
understand how
about
this
the
is
nature
generally
of this group.
trying to understand how this is generally relevant.
I'm trying to understand why somebody believes that there's only 168,000 alive people in the world.
I personally believe that there's only 500 million bodies in this place, that the population records are all lies, and that there are much less people than there are now, and that there are only about 500 million people instead of 7 billion. So it's like when you go to New York City, and there's this is why I believe that. And so when you go to places like New York or San Francisco, or you go to any major city really, all you have to do is count. So we're talking about a population demographic, and we're talking about a specific number of people that they say there's 2.5 million people on Manhattan Island.
Mm-hmm.
So all you have to do is go and count the people. All you have to do is drive by and look at the traffic. All you have to do is do some mathematical equations, which would really lead you to believe that there are significantly less people than what they say.
Well,
So
Let me put
what
it
does
to
that
you
have to
that-
do with NIMSI?
It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with NIMSY, sir, but I'm going to ask you questions about it for a reason.
Okay.
Let me put it to you this way. You're from the South. You grew up in North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Born and raised there. You're familiar with the idea of college football, right?
Sure.
This weekend, there's going to be a football game between the University of Tennessee and the University of Georgia in Athens, and there's going to be about 96,000 people that fill a stadium. Do you not believe there's 96,000 people that are going to be sitting in that stadium watching a football game?
I mean, if you see them, then they're there. That doesn't mean that there's 7 billion people in the world. The population charts and the demographics and the census records, I think, are a lie, much like a lot of other things. You know, there's a lot of lies in the government, sir. So, yeah, I mean, how much of these lies would you like to expose here in this room? You know, how much fact-based information are we going to discuss?
Well, let's talk a little bit more about some of that in a second. When we get to this idea about the polygamy relationships that he had with these 3 women, there was a 4th wife that he had previously. Is that right?
Yes.
You're aware of her named Gabriella Kuykendall?
Yes.
You ever met Gabriella Kuykendall?
No. I haven't.
Were you aware that when she had a child with Mr.
Your Honor, I'm gonna object to anything involving Ms. Peggy relevant.
Relevance is your objection?
Yes.
You want to respond?
I think it's relevant, Judge. He talked earlier about the fact that Z had 4 wives, and we're talking about 3 wives here. And I think it's relevant to his understanding of how this group dynamic worked.
He's already testified he never met her.
I'm not asking him to
All
matter.
right, overrule the objection.
You're aware of who Gabriella Kuykendall is, right?
Yes.
You're aware that she had a child with Z, right?
Yes.
You're aware that she left him in the middle of the night with the child and basically ran away from him, right?
Okay.
Matter of fact, it took place at the same house where this incident happened on December 8th of 2020. Did you know that?
No.
It happened at at Jerry's house.
Okay.
Part of what Z was trying to do with this group was to grow this group, right? He was constantly looking for other women to bring into his group here, right?
Are we not all constantly seeking the companionship of compatible individuals?
I'm asking about Z right now.
Okay.
Wasn't he always trying to talk to other women about bringing them into the group as well?
I mean, sure. Yeah.
Part of what he ultimately wanted to do was to have multiple children with multiple wives as well. Is that right?
That's what I want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
He, in fact, right now, Anna
Yeah, there's a
just
beautiful-
had a child.
There's a beautiful baby in this world that Gami just birthed. Yes, she did.
And Shaylee is pregnant today, right?
Shayla's about to have one too. Yep.
His mentality is to grow his religious following, right?
You just used the word religion, which I feel like is inappropriate.
Okay, his mentality is to grow his following.
His mentality is to find like-minded individuals to participate with each other. As is mine.
But
And that's what attracts us to each other.
But Mr.
To-
Spillars, he and you don't look for like-minded individuals. You and he look for strays, like castaway dogs on the side of the road. Isn't that true?
That's really ridiculous.
Is that not what you told him in a phone call with him at the jail just a few days ago?
Is it?
I'm asking you.
I don't know. I mean,
You and he have not talked about treating these women like strays? Finding these women that you can bring into your group and treat them like strays? That's not a comment that you made on a phone call?
I don't know, maybe, and maybe it was made in sarcasm, you know?
Maybe
like,
it was.
Like, I don't know. I don't remember every single word of every single thing that I've said. But no, I've never treated women in my life like that.
Well,
I've
you
never
definitely treat them as submissive individuals, right?
No, I treat them as...
Women are subservient to you, right?
Answer the question.
He can explain his answer.
So, yeah, so what's your question again?
I said at first that you treat them as submissive individuals.
No, I don't.
They're
I think-
subservient to you, though, right?
I think that women should be in a place that is servant, yeah, sure.
In servitude of the man.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
100%. Yes.
Meaning that Benjamin or Z or Brian Joyce, whoever he is, he controls what they do.
No.
And if they
I
don't
mean,
do what he wants, they can get out, right?
Of course.
Right? He controls what they wear, right?
So you're asking.
Yes or no?
You're asking me.
Yes or no first?
I don't know the answer to this question.
He controls what they eat, right?
We have already discussed that there is a standard, and this is the same thing that it is with me and women that I've had in my life since then. Since I've had in my entire life. When I've been a vegetarian, women who come into my life they're vegetarian, or you can not be together.
Right.
Yeah, so you're manipulating this into a control thing when it's just a standard that's set that can be avoided at any time.
If Kawani wanted to go have a hamburger at Wendy's, he'd kick her out of the car, right?
That's really a petty and childish way to describe something, and I mean, your rhetoric is utterly offensive. But no, I mean, why would she want to have, what would motivate her to eat an animal? She's the one who's telling me.
Maybe she really didn't believe in all of that.
Maybe. I mean, why not?
You testified earlier that she didn't really get to talk to her parents much, right?
Well, she was raised by her parents when she was younger and abused by them, according to her.
My question, sir, is she didn't talk to her parents much, right?
She did from time to time.
Are you aware there were times where Z would take her phone from her and she wouldn't have access to her phone to make calls to people?
Not when I was around.
Never saw that.
Never. I never saw him limit them like that. I mean, Shaylee, like, they still do things, independently, like, if you want to use that word.
His control extended to you too, right? He told you could never touch her.
Yeah, that's a very common Orthodox thing, that men do not touch each other's wives, and I respect that.
Well, I'm not suggesting that men should touch each other's wives in any other sexual way. I'm just, a handshake. You couldn't even give her a handshake.
Why would I want to? Why would I want to touch another man's wife?
You started drinking urine because of him.
I started drinking urine because Peggy Schindler told me about it, and I did my research online and did some self-edification. Perhaps you should do the same.
But Peggy Schindler, I'm not drinking my urine, sir. Peggy Schindler got that information from him, right?
Did she? I don't know.
I'm asking you.
You told me about it. I don't know.
She knew him.
Yeah, I mean, so what? Like, so there's like millions of people who drink their urine. There's like forums online with, tons of individuals, and this has become way more mainstream. And now there's like all kinds. Like I say, I mentioned Troy Casey, and I'd like to drop his name again because he's like a really prominent influencer online. And yeah, so I heard about urine therapy from Peggy. I immediately did my research about it. And I've heard about people, surviving on their urine, so I knew that it wasn't going to kill me, so I tried it. And then
And you said you do it daily.
I do.
You still maintain contact with Z?
Sure do.
Day-to-day contact?
Sure do.
You've called him probably 10 times since you've been in the jail here in Cherokee County, right?
Sure have.
You've talked to him, I guess, beginning in August or September, even through today, about the mental state that you saw from Kawani at that time.
Totally.
And your belief is, and you continue to tell him that your belief is that she was insane. I'm not making it to a legal standard of that, but you felt like she was insane.
I mean, yes, I do. I mean, call it insane, call it whatever you want. It's like, this woman was like outside of her ability to discern what was even happening, and her behavior was erratic and out of character, and she would go in and out of these phases, and yeah, I would qualify that as insane from my perspective. I've never seen anything so severe in my life.
Okay. Now, let me back you up to this incident in November in Nashville with Miss Sandra Torres.
Do it.
And I know your testimony from what you told Miss Gropper is that you believe Miss Torres was the instigator of an aggressive, violent act here, right?
Most definitely.
Okay. You did acknowledge that you were the one that got arrested
Yeah,
based on that incident, right?
Yeah, she was the one who called the cops. so-
Yeah, and you left, right, before the cops got there.
Yeah, before I got shot by a woman who was threatening me with gun violence.
You could have stuck around and talked to the cops about that, though, right?
So you're saying that I should have put myself in harm's way?
Well, I don't know, maybe you drove a mile up the road and called the cops yourself. You didn't do that either, did you?
No, I didn't.
You left. Before you left, Z had put Chloe in the car with the baby and took off, right?
Kwani got in the car by her own free will, and it was actually her that insinuated that they needed to leave.
Okay,
like I
Miss-
said earlier, because she could see the.
But, sir, Miss Torres called the police because she believed there was an issue going on there, right?
Ms. Torres called the police because, I mean, I don't know why she did. I mean,
She didn't have anything to do with you all,
yeah,
right?
that's what I'm saying. That's why it's so bizarre that someone would go so far out of the way, especially like I say, when I was carrying Kwani across the road, one of the individuals who lived in the apartment complex was walked out, and she walked by us and asked if we needed any help, and I said no, we don't.
So maybe that lady just didn't want to involve herself with what was going on with you, right?
Or maybe that's probably what a normal person would do if they, saw some woman having a panic attack and all of the individuals around her trying to help.
Well, calling the police is not necessarily calling to get somebody in trouble. As you know, sir, you called the police yourself on December 8th because you knew there was a problem.
That's more like emergency medical.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's what calling 911 does. It gets law enforcement, it gets medical personnel, it gets EMS people out there to determine what the issue is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they believe that Kwani was having a medical emergency that needed to get attention, they could take her to the hospital. They could take her to see a doctor, right?
Sure.
You didn't want that to happen.
I don't think that my desire has any reflection on the.
Z didn't want that to happen. He
Yeah.
told, he was the one directing that they get Chloe in the car and get out of there, right?
Actually, like I said, it was Kwani that initiated the sequence for them.
She was telling Miss Torres to call the police.
No,
She was telling Miss Torres to call her parents.
She was telling Miss Torres that she needed to call her parents. And then Miss Torres began behaving erratically, like I said, and began behaving belligerently and aggressively and threatening us.
When you
And
left,
so then Kwani said that, she initiated the sequence for them to leave. She could see that this woman was like this drunken, you could smell the alcohol on her, that she was just this, drunken individual who wanted to involve herself and make probably so bored with her own life or whatever that she wanted to cause drama and involve herself in somebody else's business that had nothing to do with her.
you believe that Miss Torres involved herself in someone else's situation so
Yes.
she could get attacked by you and receive a broken eye socket?
Yeah.
Sir, this is a picture that's dated November 25th of 2020.
Okay.
That's a picture that Miss Torres sent to us, that
Okay.
she took of herself that
I
day.
continue to object to
I'm-
publishing evidence that has not been admitted.
I'm not admitting it yet,
It's
Judge.
being published to the jury, it's not been identified with an exhibit number, it's not been admitted.
Sustain the objection.
So I just told you the story of what happened. And, that was never brought to trial. So your assumption,
Yeah, it was never brought to trial, sir, because you pled guilty to that.
I was never brought to trial because they would never give me a trial.
No.
I sat. Yeah, that's very much what happened. You can make assumptions and.
Sir, I'm not making assumptions.
You are making
I've seen the
assumptions.
documentation of your sentence that you received for that case out of North Carolina.
Yeah, I know.
It
Like
says
I
you
said.
pled guilty to assaulting and inflicting serious injury as a misdemeanor on Mrs. Torres.
Pursuant to Alfred law.
No, it actually doesn't say pursuant to Alfred law. That box isn't checked at all. It
Okay.
says you pled guilty.
Then that's misinformation. You could pull up the court records.
That's who I got it from.
Well, then you should pull up the court records from August 29th, 2023.
That's
when I
the
was-
date that you pled guilty.
Yeah, it says, the judge said very clearly before the court that it was pursuant to Alfred law. So perhaps you have some kind of
So you're saying there's a mistake in the document?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
From
You
what I was-
understand that an offered plea is still a plea of guilty though, right?
Yeah, but the reason why I pled guilty is because they were actually, so they didn't give me they were refusing to give me bond dates. They were refusing to give me court dates. They were refusing to give me a trial.
They refused to give you those things because you had violated your bond before, is that right?
Yeah, I was actually framed by and false evidence was submitted against me by Buncombe County.
Really?
Absolutely.
Have you initiated a civil lawsuit against them for them?
Not yet, but I have spoken with some civil rights attorneys, and I have not initiated that sequence yet, but I have spoken with several attorneys.
And sir, you're currently incarcerated by the federal government, right?
Yes, I am.
For threatening a man online, right?
That's an allegation, which
Yeah, I understand it's an allegation. You haven't been convicted of anything and you stand absolutely innocent until proven guilty.
then I think that we should, not talk about that.
I'm not going to talk to you about it. I'm not going to ask you what you did. I'm not going to ask you who it is. I'm not going to ask you any of those questions, but you are currently charged with that, right?
I have currently been charged with a crime.
14 counts of crimes, correct?
Is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Counts 1 through 14
Okay.
for communicating threats to kill someone.
Yeah, like I say, that's still.
That's not the first time you've been charged with communicating threats to kill somebody either, is it?
Can you specifically?
I can.
No, it's not. I've never actually threatened to kill someone.
Kylie Cross,
Kylie Cross.
the girl you got the CBD from.
Kylie Cross, I had a sexual relationship with her, and I told her that and she stole $1,600 out of my dresser drawer, and I told her that if she ever came back to my house, that I was going to end her. I didn't say I was going to kill her.
That's what she thought you said, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
That's
this
why
is
she
like-
went to the police and had you arrested.
Yeah.
That's why you were charged with threatening her.
I probably should have taken that one to trial because I feel like I would have won.
That's two, I guess. You should have taken to trial, but you didn't. You pled guilty to that one too.
Yeah,
You
I
got
should.
probation and 45 days in jail on that case too, right, sir?
It was actually. I'm still trying to figure out what this has to do with Hannah and what your.
It has to do with you.
Okay, and
I get to ask you questions, and it has to do with you.
okay.
But that's what you did. You threatened her, and you spent time in jail because you pled guilty in that case.
I mean, a lot of the circumstances in my life, if I really would have just called the cops, and I should have called the cops on Kylie Cross when I caught her stealing $1,600 out of my drawer, but I couldn't really prove that. And like I say, I mean,
Maybe it didn't happen.
just as you're proving right now that there's like a real sinister nature by your tone and your. I mean, we're here to talk about a baby, and all you seem to want to be is obsessed with me. So it's like, I mean,
I'm not obsessed with you, sir.
then stop asking me questions about myself and let's talk about the crime that happened.
I'm asking you about sinister things because you've committed sinister acts. And I'm asking you those things
Saying
because of how they
something-
have affected this young lady as well.
Saying and doing, these all happened after this incident with Kawani. All of these circumstances happened after this incident with Kawani.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
So do you want to maybe, maybe we should talk about the trauma that I experienced and how that has affected me and, what has led to me being irate with people. And like I say, the Sandra Torres thing, I'm happy to talk about that because, I want that. I plan to appeal that to the Superior Court of North Carolina. And I've already spoken to civil rights attorneys about the false evidence that was submitted against me in Buncombe County.
So you're testifying, your testimony earlier was that you never struck Sandra Torres in the eye.
No, I didn't. And there's some evidence that would prove that in the motion of discovery.
So how did she get the black eye that she says she got in those photographs?
Who knows? There was so
I can show you other photographs from her of her black eye that developed over the next 3 days. Would you like to see those?
She went to the hospital, and her hospital visit was 4 hours after the event. Maybe it was her son, the one who came and slashed tires. Maybe she had her son punch her in the face.
She might have, but we don't get to know that, sir, because you pled guilty to assaulting her.
Well,
You pled guilty to doing exactly what she says you did to her, which is punching her in the eye.
I had been held for 22 months, and I felt that I had a really strong civil rights case, and that's only been a year ago. Like I say, I've already spoken to civil rights attorneys, so I did. I wanted to. I pled guilty pursuant to Alfred law because I wanted to stop being oppressively persecuted by the Buncombe County government and get out so I could.
You were in jail a lot of that time because you violated your probation in your case with Kylie Cross as well, right?
No, that was not the case with Kylie Cross.
You were on probation for that case from 2022.
No, I was not. That's so I had actually become off probation, and it wasn't a violation of probation that. Can I have some more of this water? It wasn't a violation of probation that got me reincarcerated on the 5th of April 2023 after they had held me for 8 months on 24-hour house arrest. So I did 10 months in jail. I finally made bond, and they held me for 8 months. And I'm happy to talk about this. This is like a really good venue. I appreciate being able to speak this out before a court because this is all factual information that's going to come out later. And so after they held me for 8 months on 24-hour house arrest, there was a document submitted to the court by a DA, a specific DA that was targeting me, named Amy Laura Broughton, and there was false evidence submitted to the court. She brought this photo of a Facebook post that she said that I made, but it was right there on it was not on my Facebook, nor did I make this post. And so, like I say, there was false evidence submitted to the court in order to persecute me and frame me, and I've already spoken to several civil rights attorneys about this, and they say they have a very strong case. So, we're moving forward with that in due diligence, and I absolutely have every intention of appealing that guilty plea to the Superior Court of North Carolina and making sure that I get a fair trial, because that's the whole thing. They didn't want it. That's why they held me for so long, and they were refusing to give me court dates even by law. But like I say, and so like I say, I pled guilty to that to end my incarceration. But I came here today to tell my experience with Kawani and give an account to my observation of her and her mental health decline. And I'll say it again, that I do feel like not guilty by reason of insanity would be the correct call from my unprofessional perspective. Perhaps there's something that, I just don't feel like I say, she would never do that to her baby. And this was just like, she was like not herself when she did that. And I want her to know that I care about her, and I forgive her, and I love her very much.
All right.
And that's it.
Any redirect?
Just briefly. Mr. Spillars, you indicated that you had had multiple conversations with her after she was arrested for murdering Hannah, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And when she called Z from jail.
Okay. And so you indicated the nature of those was communicating how much you all love her and that you forgive her for what she did.
Yes.
Did she ever tell you why she killed Hannah?
No, I don't think she ever really did. I mean, she spoke to Z about it. I remember, and I'm giving you secondhand information here.
Don't do that. I'm asking, did she ever tell, when you talked to her, did she ever tell you?
I don't remember her ever saying anything about that.
Okay. Did she ever tell you that she told the police that she killed Hannah because she just wanted to be with her baby and her husband, but he refused?
What do you mean?
Did she ever tell you that that's what she told the police? That she just wanted to be with him and Hannah, but he refused?
Oh, no way.
Okay. You've
No,
never heard that
definitely.
before?
Nothing like that.
Okay.
No. I could tell you something, but I don't know. I mean,
Did she ever tell you that she told doctors that she killed Hannah because she thought it was the only way for her and Hannah to be able to escape the situation?
no, definitely not.
You've never heard that before?
No.
Okay.
Nothing.
Any further cross-examination? All right, then we are going to let you take a recess, members of the jury, until 3 o'clock.